My name is Teresa Clark. I'm 37 years old, and the moment my relationship ended didn't sound like heartbreak. It sounded like clarity. Cold, precise, almost rehearsed. You only exist to make my life easier. Patrick didn't raise his voice when he said it. That was the part that stayed with me. Not the words themselves, but how effortlessly they came out. Like he wasn't saying something cruel, like he was stating a fact we both already understood. I remember standing there in the kitchen, my hand still resting on the counter, feeling something inside me go completely still. Because anger I understood. Frustration I could work with. But that was something else. I live just outside Charlotte, in a townhome I bought 2 years before Patrick and I moved in together. I work as a logistics manager for a medical supply company. Structured days, tight schedules, problems that require solutions, not emotion. Patrick worked in event sales for a hotel downtown. Fast-paced, social, image-driven. On paper, we made sense. Good jobs, clean house, photos on the wall from vacations that looked like they belonged in someone else's life. People thought he was confident, direct, a little intense maybe, but successful. Inside the house, it was different. Patrick corrected everything. How I loaded the dishwasher, how I responded to messages, the tone I used when speaking to his friends, the way I laughed, too loud apparently, the way I dressed, either too plain or trying too hard. At first it sounded like suggestions. You'd look sharper if you wore something more fitted. You come off a little defensive in conversations. You should really think about how you present yourself. He framed it as improvement, growth, optimization, and I believed him. Because I've always been the kind of person who fixes things, who adjusts, who takes feedback and turns it into action. So I adjusted. Then I adjusted again. Then again, until I couldn't tell where I ended and his expectations began. If dinner was late because I stayed late at work, I was unreliable. If I sat down before finishing chores, I was lazy. If I forgot something small, coffee creamer, dry cleaning, a message he asked me to send, it wasn't a mistake. It was a flaw. A reflection of who I was. The worst part is how slow it happens. At first, I pushed back. Then I explained. Then I defended myself. And eventually, I started apologizing before he even finished speaking, just to keep the night from getting worse. I stopped inviting friends over because he'd dissect them after they left. Too loud, too immature, not ambitious enough. I stopped going to my weekly trivia night because he'd text me the entire time. Must be nice to have no responsibilities. I guess I'll handle everything again. If I stayed home, there was peace. Not real peace, just less damage. The turning point didn't come from a fight. It came from a question. My mom called one Sunday afternoon after Patrick criticized me for bringing the wrong flowers to a dinner party. I had driven to the grocery store, sat in the parking lot, and just stayed there. Holding a bouquet, I suddenly felt stupid for buying. She listened for maybe 30 seconds. Then she said, "Teresa, when was the last time you felt relaxed in your own home?" I didn't answer. Because I couldn't remember. A month later, I started seeing a therapist. Dr. Marin, quiet office, gray couch, expensive enough that I almost convinced myself not to go. Best decision I made that year. I told her I wasn't being abused. I just needed to communicate better. She didn't argue. She just asked me to start writing things down. Moments that left me confused. Conversations that didn't sit right. Dates, times, exact words. So I did. And once I started, I couldn't stop seeing it. Monday, Patrick called me careless because I forgot sparkling water. Thursday, he read my messages with my sister and asked why I was sharing private information. Saturday, he mocked the way I told a story in front of his friends, then said I was too sensitive when I went quiet. Small things, constant things. Like being slowly sanded down. The night everything broke was a Tuesday. I'd had a brutal day, a shipment delay, 2 hospital orders rerouted. One of my drivers quit without notice. I texted Patrick around 6 that I'd be late. He replied with one word. Fine. I got home at 8:14. He was in the kitchen, still in work clothes, wine glass in hand. He didn't say hello. He looked at the counter and said, "Where's the banner sample from the print shop?" I had forgotten it. I told him the truth. That work had been chaos, that I'd get it first thing in the morning. He laughed, not amused. Sharp. Then he said, "What exactly do you think your role is here? Because you're not thoughtful, you're not helpful. And lately, you're barely even tolerable." I stood there, my bag still on my shoulder. "Patrick, I had a rough day. I forgot one errand." He set his glass down, stepped closer, voice calm, eyes cold. "No, Teresa, you always do this. You act like your job matters more than my life." A pause. Then the sentence. You only exist to make my life easier. And somehow you're failing at that too. Something inside me just stopped. Not shattered, not exploded. Stopped. Because for the first time, there was no confusion left. No room to reinterpret. No softer version hiding underneath. Just truth. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't argue. Didn't ask if he heard himself. I just said, "Then you can make it easy without me." He blinked, then smiled. Actually smiled. Like this was just another one of our exchanges. "Oh, please," he said. "Where are you going to go?" I didn't answer. I took my keys off the hook, went upstairs, packed a bag. Clothes, laptop, medication, charger, and the folder. The one with financial documents I'd started keeping after therapy. He followed me, talking the entire time. You're being dramatic. This is why I can't talk to you. You turn everything into a problem." I kept packing. At the door, he laughed. "You'll be back tomorrow," he said. "You always come back." I looked at him, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to prove anything. "Not this time," I said, and I left. The hotel room was 15 minutes away. Neutral walls, stiff mattress, a faint smell of industrial detergent that clung to everything. It cost me $612 for 2 nights. I remember sitting on the edge of the bed, my bag still zipped, my shoes still on, just listening. No footsteps overhead, no voice in the next room, no tension waiting for me to do something wrong. Just silence, real silence. And it felt unfamiliar in a way I couldn't quite explain. The next morning, Patrick texted me like nothing had happened. "Don't forget the tailor closes at 6 o'clock. Then 5 minutes later, "We're out of paper towels." I stared at the messages for a long time, not because I was confused, but because I finally understood something I hadn't let myself see before. To him, I hadn't left. I had just stepped out of function, like an appliance temporarily unplugged. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the messages to Dr. Marin. Then I opened another email draft, one I had been thinking about for weeks but hadn't been ready to send. I reached out to a divorce attorney. Her name was Brooke Ellis. A colleague had mentioned her months ago when I casually described marital stress over lunch. At the time, I laughed it off. Now I didn't. She saw me that afternoon. Her office was quiet, organized, intentional in a way that made me feel like nothing I said would be dismissed or minimized. I told her everything. The corrections, the constant criticism, the journal entries, the recordings I had started keeping after therapy, the financial details, the fact that the townhome was mine before Patrick ever moved in. And then I said the thing that had been sitting in my chest for months. "I'm not afraid of him hurting me," I said. "I'm afraid of disappearing if I stay." Brooke didn't interrupt, didn't rush me. She just nodded once and said something that landed harder than anything else that week. "You don't need bruises to prove you've been living under abuse." Something in me shifted when she said that. Not dramatically, just quietly, like a door unlocking. I paid her retainer that same day, $4,200. No hesitation. Because for the first time, I wasn't paying to fix something. I was paying to leave it. 2 days later, Brooke sent Patrick formal notice. Divorce proceedings initiated. All communication to go through legal counsel. No direct contact unless absolutely necessary. Patrick stopped treating it like a joke after that. Within 10 minutes of him receiving the email, my phone lit up. Missed calls. Voicemails. 32 in one night. The first few were sharp, controlled. "Teresa, what is this? Call me back." Then came the edge. "Are you seriously doing this over one sentence?" Then the shift. "If you go through with this, I will make sure people know what you're really like." And finally, something closer to panic. You're not thinking clearly. You're overreacting. Just come home and we'll talk." I didn't respond. Not once. For the first time in years, I let the silence stay. 3 days later, a message came in from an unknown number. "Hey, I know it's not my place, but Patrick is really struggling. He says you've been acting distant and your lawyer escalated things too quickly. Kelsey," one of his friends. I didn't need her to say her name. The tone gave it away. Not concern for what happened. Concern for how I responded, I replied once. "I didn't escalate anything. I left an abusive environment. Please don't contact me again." She never answered. But 2 hours later, Patrick's younger sister, Amber, emailed me. 3 paragraphs about forgiveness, about stress, about how relationships are hard and people say things they don't mean. Buried in the middle was the sentence that mattered. "He didn't mean it like that." Intent. That's what they all wanted to defend. Not impact, not pattern. Intent. Brooke told me to stop responding to anyone outside official channels. So I did. The next step was going back to the house. Not alone. We arranged a civil standby. A deputy would be present while I gathered the rest of my belongings. 15 minutes. That's all I needed. The house looked the same from the outside. Clean. Put together, like nothing had changed. Patrick opened the door before we even knocked. Perfectly composed. Hair styled, shirt pressed, expression soft. For a moment, it almost felt like walking into one of his performances. "Teresa," he said gently, "you didn't have to do all this." I didn't respond. I walked past him, upstairs. The first thing I saw was the picture frames, face down. Every single one that had my family in it. My mother, my sister, gone from the walls. My suitcases were open on the floor, clothes shifted, not destroyed, just handled, controlled. Then I walked into the bathroom and saw it. My notebook, the one I had been using for therapy, torn in half. Pages crumpled in the trash. I picked up the pieces, held them in my hands. For a second, I felt something rise in my chest. Not sadness, not even anger, just confirmation. I walked back downstairs, held the torn pages up slightly. Patrick glanced at them, then shrugged. "Maybe write about this in your little journal," he said. The deputy heard that, heard everything after that. Because when I didn't react, Patrick changed. The softness dropped. His voice sharpened. "You're being ridiculous," he said. "No court is going to take this seriously. Still nothing from me." That made it worse. "I could cry right now," he added, almost casually, "and everyone would believe me over you." The room felt smaller, tighter, but I stayed still. Didn't argue. Didn't defend. Because for the first time, I understood something he didn't. This wasn't about weaning the moment. It was about documenting the pattern. "You're not actually leaving," he said finally. "You're not built for that. You'll come back the second real life gets inconvenient." I zipped my bag, looked at him once. Not with anger, not with fear. Just distance. Then I walked out. Later that afternoon, I sent Brooke everything. The deputy's report, photos of the notebook, my own audio recording from the kitchen. Every detail. That week, she filed for temporary exclusive use of the townhome, citing harassment, emotional abuse, destruction of personal property. While we waited for the hearing, I moved into a furnished apartment near South End. Gray furniture, bad coffee maker, $2,050 for the month. And for the first time in years, peace didn't feel temporary. Patrick didn't handle the distance well, not the separation itself, the loss of access. He emailed 3 times in one day. First, "I want to fix this." Second, "You are humiliating me." Third, "If your mother is behind this, tell her to stay out of our relationship." That one made me pause, because I hadn't told my mom everything. Apparently, he had. And apparently, that didn't go the way he expected. She called me later that evening. Her voice was calm, but there was something underneath it. "I kept waiting," she said slowly, "for you to tell me one nice thing he said about you." I didn't answer, because I couldn't. "That's all I needed to know," she said. I sat in my car after that call, hands still on the steering wheel, trying not to cry. Back at work, my boss, Dana, noticed the difference. Not distracted, not overwhelmed, just lighter. I told her enough to explain that legal paperwork might come through. She didn't ask for details. Didn't push. She just said, "If he shows up here, security handles it, not you." That mattered more than she probably realized, because Patrick did show up that Friday. He walked into the lobby like he belonged there, told reception he needed 5 minutes with me. Dana saw him on camera before I ever knew, called me from upstairs. "Stay where you are," she said. Security escorted him out. I never had to see his face. He left something behind. A garment bag. Inside was the dress I wore the night we first met. Pressed. Perfect. With a note pinned to it. "You were better when you needed me." I stared at those words for a long time. Then I took a picture and sent it to Brooke, because by then, I knew exactly what it was. Not an apology. Not a memory. A message. Control, trying to find its way back in. But it didn't. Not anymore. By the 3rd week, the quiet had started to feel normal. Not fragile, not something I was waiting to lose. Just mine. I was sleeping through the night again. No more waking up at 2 a.m. replaying conversations, trying to predict what version of Patrick I'd be dealing with the next day. I started going back to the gym. Met my friend Trevor for coffee without checking my phone every 5 minutes. Laughed without adjusting the volume. It sounds small, but when you've been monitored long enough, small things feel like freedom. Patrick didn't see it that way, because while I was stabilizing, he was unraveling. The hearing for temporary possession of the townhome was scheduled 3 weeks after I left. He showed up looking exactly the way I knew he would. Polished. Controlled. Wearing a neutral-toned suit. Expression carefully arranged into something that could pass for hurt if you didn't look too closely. If you didn't know better, you might have believed him. That was always his strength. Presentation. Narrative. The ability to sound reasonable while quietly rewriting reality. I used to fall for that. Not anymore. Brooke didn't waste time. She laid everything out methodically. My therapy notes, the journal entries, the recordings, the deputy's report, photos of the torn notebook, the incident at my workplace, the garment bag, the note, the emails, the voicemails, each piece by itself explainable. Together, a pattern. Patrick's lawyer tried to interrupt early, framed it as emotional conflict, miscommunication, a rough patch between two people under stress. Brooke didn't even look at him when she responded. Conflict is two people in pain, she said calmly. Abuse is one person building a system where the other lives in fear of the next correction. The room shifted. You could feel it. Patrick didn't react outwardly, but I saw it. That slight tightening around his jaw. The moment he realized this wasn't going to follow his script. The judge granted me temporary exclusive use of the townhome, ordered that all communication go through legal counsel. No direct contact. Patrick had until Friday to remove his remaining belongings with third-party movers. No exceptions. He violated that order within 24 hours. First, it was flowers sent to my office. White lilies, my least favorite, which he knew. The card read, "You're still mine to talk to." I didn't touch them. Security documented everything. Then came the voicemail. Blocked number. His voice lower this time, controlled. You think one hearing changes anything? I made you. I can unmake you too. I listened to it once, then sent it to Brooke. That was the moment she told me to file a harassment report. I went to the station with a binder. Printed emails, screenshots, call logs, transcripts. No emotion, no exaggeration, just evidence. The officer flipped through a few pages. Looked up at me. Has he threatened your job directly? He asked. Not yet, I said. He nodded slowly. Document everything, he said. People like this escalate when they lose control. He was right. The next day, Patrick tried to hit my job. Dana called me into her office, turned her laptop around. An email had come into HR, anonymous, accusing me of being unstable, verbally abusive, unsafe to work with. No specifics, just enough to plant doubt. Dana didn't even hesitate. This reads like retaliation, she said. We'll handle it. She forwarded it to legal, saved a copy, and told me, you don't engage. Not with this. Not with him. For the first time in this entire process, I felt protected by something bigger than myself. That mattered, more than I expected. That weekend, Patrick's found my apartment. I still don't know how. Maybe he followed me weeks earlier. Maybe someone told him. Maybe he just refused to accept distance as real. Saturday night, I noticed his car parked across the street. Engine off. Lights out. Just sitting there, watching. I stood behind the blinds. Didn't move. Didn't turn off the light. Didn't give him the reaction he was waiting for. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I can see your kitchen light. We should talk like adults. My hand tightened around the phone. For a second, old instincts kicked in. Explain. De-escalate. Fix it. Instead, I called the police. By the time they arrived, he was gone. But the building cameras had everything. Car, time, duration, another piece, another pattern. Monday morning, Brooke filed for a temporary protective order. That's when something unexpected happened. Patrick's older sister reached out, Olivia Hale. I almost didn't answer. I assumed it would be the same thing. Deflection, minimization, pressure. But her voice was different. Quiet, measured. I think I need to hear something from you directly, she said. I didn't say much. I just sent her 2 recordings, one from the kitchen, one from the house during the deputy visit. An hour later, she called back. There was a pause before she spoke. I'm sorry, she said. Not I'm sorry this is happening. Not I'm sorry you both are going through this. Just I'm sorry. She told me Patrick had always been like this. Not always obvious, but consistent. He controlled the emotional tone in every room he entered. And when things didn't go his way, he shifted into victim mode. Their father used to smooth it over, call it intensity, call it passion. Olivia exhaled softly. I think we all helped him believe no one would ever stop him. She didn't offer to testify, didn't promise to intervene. She just stopped supporting his version of reality. Sometimes that's enough. The protective order hearing was worse than the first. Because this time, Patrick cried. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough. Voice shaking, hands slightly unsteady. He said therapy had changed me, that I was labeling normal relationship struggles as abuse, that he came to my workplace out of concern, that he went to my apartment because he loved me, that the HR email was about protecting others. Every word, polished, reasonable, almost convincing, until Brooke played the voicemail. I made you. I can unmake you too. Silence. Real silence this time. The judge didn't hesitate. Temporary protective order granted. No contact. No showing up at my home, office, or any place I frequented. All communication through attorneys. Patrick looked at me after that. Not angry. Not sad. Something else. Like I had broken an agreement he thought I'd always honor. That expression used to undo me. Make me second-guess everything. Now, it just confirmed what I already knew. This was never about love. It was about control. And for the first time, he didn't have it. After the protective order, everything changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. Like a door closing somewhere behind me that I didn't need to reopen. Patrick didn't stop trying. He just changed tactics. When direct contact was blocked, he moved sideways. Social media posts started appearing. Nothing explicit. Nothing that would violate the order outright. Just vague captions layered over carefully staged photos. Quotes about betrayal. About surviving someone emotionally unstable. Soft lighting. Controlled angles. The same kind of presentation he had always relied on. Mutual friends started sending them to me. At first, I looked, scrolled, tried to understand what version of me he was building. Then I stopped. Because I realized something important. I didn't need to watch someone rewrite my story in real time. I just needed to live it. So I blocked what I could, ignored the rest, and kept moving forward. Therapy became less about survival and more about reconstruction. Dr. Marin asked different questions now. Not what happened, but what do you want? That question felt harder than anything I had answered before, because for years, what I wanted hadn't mattered. So I started small. What I wanted for dinner, what I wanted to do on a Sunday, who I wanted to spend time with. Simple things. But each one felt like reclaiming something that had been quietly taken. I started having people over again. Trevor came by for games. My mom stopped in with banana bread like she used to. The house felt different. Not because it had changed, but because I had. A month after the protective order, I met someone. Daniel Carter. It wasn't dramatic. No instant spark. No overwhelming connection. Just easy. We met at a small cookout through Trevor's wife. He asked questions. Listened to the answers. Didn't interrupt. Didn't correct. Didn't turn conversations into evaluations. The first time he texted me after, it was simple. Made it home safe. Hope you did too. No subtext. No expectation. No hidden test. And that alone felt unfamiliar in the best way. I wasn't looking for anything serious. Honestly, I wasn't sure I remembered how. But being around him didn't feel like something I had to manage. It just felt calm. The divorce finalized a little over 3 months after the first hearing. People who haven't been through it think that sounds fast. It didn't feel fast. It felt like dragging something heavy uphill while paperwork tried to pull you back down. But it ended. Patrick tried to take more than he was entitled to. Part of the townhome equity. Half my annual bonus. Even requested that I cover his legal fees, claiming I had destabilized his life by leaving. Brooke handled it without emotion. Just facts. Dates. Documentation. By the time everything settled, the outcome was simple. Patrick walked away with a negotiated $6,500 from a shared account. His car, free and clear. Some furniture he had chosen. I kept the townhome, my retirement, my income, my stability, and most importantly, myself. Leaving cost me just under $14,000 when everything was accounted for. Legal fees, hotel, apartment, logistics, every dollar worth it. The final hearing wasn't dramatic. No shouting. No last-minute revelations. Just the quiet collapse of a narrative that couldn't hold up under evidence. Patrick tried one last time. Framed himself as someone blindsided. Abandoned without warning. Brooke walked the court through everything. The therapy notes. The journal. The recordings. The deputy visit. The workplace incident. The flowers. The threats. The apartment surveillance. Patterns. That's what mattered. One moment can be explained away. A pattern can't. The judge signed off on the divorce. Extended the no-contact conditions for the remainder of the protective order. Ordered Patrick to stop indirect contact. Stop using third parties. Stop posting anything that could be considered targeted harassment. Whether that changed who he was, I don't know. But it changed what he was allowed to do to me. And that was enough. The closure I didn't expect came 2 weeks later. From his mother. Denise. I almost didn't answer when she called. But I did. Her voice sounded tired. Quieter than I remembered. I should have paid more attention, she said. No greeting. No build-up. Just that. I used to notice how quiet you got at dinner, she continued. I told myself it was just personality differences. I didn't say anything. Because there wasn't anything to say. I'm not calling to defend him, she added. I just wanted to tell you, no one should feel small in their own relationship. Then she said goodbye. No apology that asked for something in return. No attempt to fix anything. Just acknowledgement. I sat in my kitchen for a long time after that. The house felt bigger now, brighter, not because I changed the space immediately, but because it was no longer filled with tension I had learned to ignore. I repainted the guest room. Took down the oversized mirrored wall piece Patrick insisted made the dining area look high-end. Left the wall empty for a while. Empty felt better than artificial. I started noticing things I hadn't before. How quiet mornings actually were. How different it felt to eat without bracing for criticism. How natural laughter sounded when it didn't need permission. At work, Dana promoted me to a senior regional role. More responsibility, more travel. But somehow, less stress than my relationship had ever been. Daniel laughed when I told him that. That's a very low bar, he said. He wasn't wrong, but it was an honest one. Looking back, the most dangerous part wasn't the obvious moments. It wasn't the sharp words or the public corrections. It was how normal it all started to feel. How easy it was to believe that if I just adjusted enough, everything would settle. But it never did, because it wasn't a phase. It wasn't stress. It wasn't miscommunication. It was a system. One where I was constantly being reshaped to fit someone else's expectations. And the line that ended everything wasn't powerful because it was cruel. It was powerful because it was honest. You only exist to make my life easier. The moment I believed that he meant it was the moment I understood I didn't have to stay. And the second I left that system, I didn't lose anything. I got my life back.